Macedonia Planning Commission public hearing for February 12th, 2024. Can we get a roll call?
Mr. Westbrooks?
Here.
Mr. Wallenhurst?
Here.
Mr. Roberts?
Here.
Mr. Cox?
Here.
Ms. Metzke? Here.
All right. First item is the proposed conditional zoning certificate for outdoor storage in the G1 General Industrial District for Space Place located at 9165 South Freeway Drive. Is there anyone here from the public that wishes to speak to this item?
We're the applicant.
Okay. We'll get to you guys in the regular meeting, but yeah, so, good. All right. No one here to speak. We'll look at the second one. Proposed conditional zoning certificate to permit 55-year and over multifamily residence in a B2 community shopping district located on parcel numbers 3303899 and 8100104 Valley View Road. Is anyone here from the public wishes to speak to this? Appears not. With that, someone wants to make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll motion we close it.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Mr. France, should we move right into the regular meeting since the applicant's here?
Yeah, you've conducted a public hearing. There's no one here, and I think you've taken the position, and I agree and pass, that you can continue right into the regular meeting.
All right, thank you. And I will call to order the Macedonia Planning Commission regular meeting for February 12th, 2024. Can we get a roll call again?
Mr. Westbrooks?
Here.
Mr. Roberts?
Here.
Mr. Cox?
Here.
Mr. Wallenhurst?
Here.
Ms. Metzke? Here.
All right, first item is approval of the January 8th, 2024 meeting minutes. Anybody have any comments, corrections?
I motion we approve them.
I'd second that.
All right, any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. And the first item is the conditional zoning certificate for the outdoor storage Space Place. If you guys would like to come on up.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello. Yeah, pull. You guys have been here before. Could we get names just for Susan for the record?
Michael Woolwind, Woolwind Engineering Group, civil engineer for the project.
Michael Sims, Sims Law LPA.
Joe Rash.
All right. I don't know if you want to give any kind of overview or if you want to jump into comments.
Yeah, just very briefly, we've submitted a revised site plan that shows the proposed outdoor storage. We've submitted calculations showing that the existing stormwater pond is in compliance with the city regulations. We've confirmed that no additional wetlands are impacted with this project. So we're here to answer your questions tonight.
All right. Mr. France, would you like to go over your comments?
Sure, I have a report updated date of 1/27/24, January 27, 2024. It's based on my November 10th original memo. Essentially, just going into that document, still in my opinion, what remains is the setback issue for the outdoor storage located, it's identified as item number 2 in my report. The easement document, I still think there's some question of whether that actually allows for outdoor storage of materials, parking of vehicles and such. The way it states is that essentially it has to be readily removable. Now, that's a private easement between the property owner and the utility, but I am concerned that that's something that would permit this parking of these storage of equipment and vehicles and such. So I do think that needs to be worked through. The preference would be to have something from the utility company that says that they find it acceptable, or that their language within that easement does grant that authority. As identified, the calculations which were provided to the engineer, and I'll let the engineer speak to that, have been provided for review. It does bring to light, now that the site plan clearly states that the area that's proposed for outdoor storage, that is gravel indeed. And then 117111E4A of the planning zoning code does require that to be hard surface, either asphalt or concrete. So a variance would need to be obtained, or that area would have to be paved, subject to, of course, planning commission approval. I can answer any questions you may have.
All right. So I guess, did you guys have any thoughts on any of his comments, particularly the easement or the surface?
I'd like to comment on the easement, if you would. First off, I brought a copy of the easement for you folks. Hope I have enough.
This is the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah, we submitted it with you.
All right, if you look at the 11th line down from the top, the first paragraph, it says, "No building or other similar structure shall be erected." It only prohibits structures, has nothing to do with vehicles whatsoever. And then it goes on to say, and it shouldn't prevent from replacing cold frames or objects that are readily removable. So for those of you who may not know what a cold frame is, because I certainly didn't, brought some pictures of various different cold frames. There's a slew of those. So what we are proposing is two things to go along with this. Number one, that this doesn't prohibit the vehicles to start with. But number two, we are going to add a provision to our lease which gives us automatic authority to pick up and remove any car that's necessary. Secondly, we've contracted with a towing company to come and pick up a car within a 2-hour frame. That should, I think, address your issues. Any questions, Mr. France? I mean, does that answer your questions adequately?
I'm assuming you're having difficulty obtaining something on letterhead from the utility company that says, "We've reviewed the easement, we've reviewed your proposal, and we find it satisfactory."
I can speak on that. I reached out to the utility company when I first bought the property years ago. I could not get a hold of anybody that would give me any straight answers on anything. I believe Mr. Rowland or someone from his firm has reached out a few times,
Recently, or just since you bought it?
In the last couple of months,
Okay.
and we've never been able to get any answer.
no response.
The easement itself specifically prohibits structures. It doesn't say a thing about vehicles. So vehicles shouldn't be applicable in the easement at all, from what I understand.
My understanding also.
How old would this be, and do we know if it's been amended?
It has not been amended, and it's quite old.
I want to say,
I didn't see a date. Well, there's a date there from 1962.
that's probably still it. I mean, there's no reason for them to have amended it.
What their need is that if a power line comes down, they need to be able to get access into the property to fix the power line. If there's an accident,
Or maintenance, regular maintenance.
regular, it shouldn't be an issue for them to get access.
I mean, as you can see, these things, these cold frames, they still take some time to take them down. Some of them are brick, some of them are wood.
That's the reason that was the reason I asked the question, because I'm like,
I never
is that
knew what
even
a cold frame
concern
was.
nowadays? So that's why I figured this is, and the fact that this was on Fiche, this is probably old. So I was just concerned if it would be amended and we're missing an amendment.
There is no,
I mean, the verbiage specifically says structures. Here's another one, it's actually got a cement frame on the bottom.
I'm not getting a response. I don't know.
Mr. France, do you have any thoughts on that, or?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a private document between the property owner and the utility company. All I'm concerned about is you granting some carte blanche approval that says it's okay. And, you know, and then the utility company comes back, even though we don't have, you know, liability, if you will, that it's sort of immune from, you know, if a mistake is made, but I just think it's just something that's concerning, and so, I've never had a very difficult time getting stuff out of the utility company for documentation, so it's strange that they won't return your call.
If you have somebody we can speak to there, I have no problem reaching out to that person, but every time we reach out to them, we gotta run around, give it a different 800 number to call, and then get no answers.
Yeah, the city has a government affairs liaison, and so I bet that individual would be able to provide some assistance, for sure. I don't think it should hold up your approval. I think that the planning commission could make it subject to.
Okay.
And just, you know, again, subject to some kind of documentation from the power company or from the utility company.
Okay. We'll certainly try to do that, but I would argue that it shouldn't, I don't know that it should be required. If the words of these themselves specifically, if they don't prohibit the action, they specifically allow it.
Has our lawyer reviewed this? City lawyer?
Has Mr. Gaddetti reviewed this?
No.
I'd be delighted to discuss it with them if you would provide that for me.
Yeah, so the planning commission could make it subject to Mr. Gaddetti's review and approval.
Does that kind of, does
Yeah,
that
I mean,
give you some
if Mark finds it
Yeah.
acceptable, I'm comfortable with it, yeah.
I would rather.
Just wanna make sure the city.
I would-
I'd rather them
I would
together,
agree,
yeah.
that's where I'm, that's why I asked the question, because I don't, again, I agree with Brian,
Kevin, could I ask a question?
Please do, go ahead.
I think this, Brian's comments also incorporate the old comments that you have to get various variances. And I talked to him about that, one of which is that you, there's an ordinance that you have to be 300 feet away from Spruce Hill, which is a housing development. And I don't think that's accurate, and I don't know if what the board will think about that, but I went out there and checked it out. And there's two reasons for that. That ordinance is designed to keep residences from having a truck parking lot or something nearby. And it does talk about the word street, and you think of street as a residence. Our code has things about thoroughfares, streets, and what I'm thinking of, you're not only, that's the street in front of your building, what is it called?
Freeway drive.
Yeah, Freeway Drive, I don't know how wide that is, but then there's 271, and in front of Spruce Hill, there's this giant concrete barrier, and I think it's way over 300 feet. So those would be the two reasons I would ask the board, forget that one for you, having you get a variance, but I mean, that would be my argument on that one. And so we have a little debate on that with Brian, but that's what I would say. That strikes me as wrong, because it's got to be way over with a 4-lane highway, plus a huge center strip. I mean, if you take a tape measure out of there, I think it'd be way over 300. So when I'm thinking of, there's two reasons why that particular requirement of our board, you've got to go to variance. I don't think you do, but that's just me.
If I could speak on that, if I remember correctly, I believe it's 270 feet from the corner of the property to the Spruce Hill development.
Well, it's to protect the homeowners from the noise of a truck, and they got this giant concrete barrier on top of it. So the whole idea, I
Between our
think, is,
property and the Spruce Hill development, you have Interstate 271. It's on the other side of 271. There's
Well, of course
nothing
it
we're
is.
going to do that's going to impact anything on the other side of 271.
So while I agree with that, I don't think we have the authority to go against what a code would be. So that's the whole reason why we have the Board of Zoning appeal process, is they could go there and, or they have. Did they go for that? No. Okay. So if they agree with your interpretation, then they should grant a variance. Because I agree, yeah, there's a
But why would
highway, there's a sound wall.
why would we require that even?
because it's.
Because it's
300
in the code.
It's
We
not
don't
in the
have-
code. If you have to read the code a little closer, if you look for definitions of street, thoroughfare, and roadway, it's all in the front of the code, what they are, the definition of them, it doesn't apply. That particular thing, is not a street, it's not a residential street at all, it's a freeway. So that's why I didn't think it would be necessary, but
I just think it's a gray area. Why not, if that seems a reasonable request from Board of Zoning, if they approve it, then they approve it, and then there's not even a debate.
yeah, okay.
I don't know.
What about?
I agree with you. There's a highway and a sound wall and all that. It seems like it would be pretty easy variance to
And the
get.
distance.
I believe
Yeah.
I discussed this with you, Bob, when we had a meeting a couple months ago, and you had felt that it would be up to this board to decide if it's required. I mean, it seemed like you thought,
Yeah, this board would be, we were talking, Joe, more on the lines of like what type of landscaping screening might be necessary there. Yeah, we actually didn't get into the setback issue when you, Chris, and I had met. You said it's 270 feet from the corner of your property?
You guys have-
By memory, from the corner of the property. This isn't from where the vehicles would be parked, actually. From where the vehicles are parked, it's more than 300 feet. But from the actual corner of our property, which technically goes out into the street itself, from that corner to the other corner, and not where the residences are, but the yards and whatever, it's like, if I remember, it's like 270.
Okay.
Yeah, so if I may, Mr. Chairman, it's not the distance between the back of a house and the property line in question. The way the code reads in qualifying words that are most important, and it's under 116904E or F2, outdoor storage areas shall be set back from the front property line a minimum of 100 feet. So from the front property line, a minimum of 100 feet, except that the minimum setback shall be 300 feet from the front property line to the outdoor storage area, 300 feet, when across the street from residentially zoned property. Across the street from residentially zoned property. Street, and I don't know where the planning commissioner is finding the definition of a thoroughfare, but within the planning, or within the zoning code under 113302 definition 22 defines street, which is all property dedicated or intended for public or private use. And so you are indeed across the street, and in this instance, the setback is, you're across the street from residentially zoned property, which is Spruce Hill, and the setback is from the front property line. So it's cross street, and when it's cross street, it's a 300-foot setback from the front property line. So that's
Interstate 271 is considered a street.
Yeah, it's a public road.
It's
Yeah.
all
it's public road, yeah. So from that perspective, it would need to be 300 feet from the front property line, not, and I agree, it's more than 300 feet from the back of the house to the storage area, but it's how the code reads.
Yeah, that's not the question.
Right, that's not the question, that's correct.
Yeah, it seems to me like that should require a variance, whether makes sense to everybody or not.
Well,
Yeah, it seems like overkill, but that's the way the code is written.
yeah, I don't
That's
think
what we
there's a
gotta
different
do.
way to interpret the code,
Yeah.
but now, you could, I think we amended the plan and zoning code to be clear that the Board of Zoning Appeals can interpret the code. They can provide an interpretation. So you have a number of ways for administrative relief under our code. You have an appeal of a decision. You could have an appeal of a decision of this planning commission. You could seek an interpretation of the language of the code from the Board of Zoning Appeals, or you can go get a direct variance for, setback distance. Those are various administrative reliefs provided under the code.
Mr. Chair, if I
Yes,
may as well, I have a
please.
question in regards to, I was reading Mr. Francis' comments here, that the original application stated there would be no outdoor storage, and in fact, the stipulation was placed in our conditional zoning certificate approval that it would not be. So how do we go, do we handle that? Do we have to amend that previously approved
Well, I
conditional
think
zoning
that's-
certificate, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that that's a simple thing. You know, the code allows for outdoor storage. It's a
Right.
conditionally permitted use. And as such, if the applicant requests that conditionally permitted use and previously said they wouldn't do it, that's okay, people change their mind. So I think amending that to accept the applicant's request, and obviously they'll make that request, and I would see no reason to deny it. It's a conditionally permissible use in the code. I was simply pointing out that they said they wouldn't do it. It wasn't designed on the site plan. The site plan clearly did not show outdoor storage. We never had any conversation other than it wouldn't be part of the application. Things change, but those
Yeah,
things
sure.
appeared to have changed during the construction process when this was obviously created for outdoor storage, and that was the intention, because it's set aside an area that's now we identify as gravel that is being proposed for outdoor storage. So I think it was their intent to do it.
And you were actually using it as outdoor storage, which was kind of irritating.
That's my fault. That's 100% my fault. There was a miscommunication between myself and the storage manager, but that is 100% my fault.
Yeah, and those things can be rectified. Again, it's a right under the code. I have no issue as the planner for the community to allow an application to go forward. You want to amend it and request outdoor storage, no problem. I think the code language is clear that it has to be set back 300 feet. If the commission agrees, an appeal to that decision can be made by the applicant for administrative relief. If the applicant wants to pull that item from the agenda, go get an interpretation from the BZA, they can. The applicant can go get a direct variance as well.
What's your intention for the surface?
I'm happy with, as gravel, it works. If it's important to the city that it should be hard surface, I have no problem doing asphalt.
I mean, it's required, it would have to be a variance to not have a hard surface. So I guess I'm looking for what, we're asking for a hard surface because that's what's required. It's the only thing we can approve. If you don't want to do that, then you've got to go for a variance.
If I'm going for a variance anyways, because of the other issues I've made, I'm not sure.
Okay.
To be very honest.
Okay.
If I don't need to go for a variance for anything else, I'm definitely hard servicing it because I don't want to go through the variance process. If I'm going to go through the variance process anyways, then they have to ask me to go to the gravel. But if it's not allowed, then asphalt's not a good thing.
Okay. I guess before we get too far, Mr. Shalat, you had comments?
Yeah, actually, through the course of this conversation, we kind of touched on everything that was on my memo. I agree it's disappointing that that this area that was supposed to be green space was covered with gravel and used for outdoor storage. But I guess we all got to get past that. Records indicate there were no wetlands in this area, so none of that got disturbed. The detention pond is sized appropriately, excuse me, to handle this additional hard surface area. And I would suggest that the area indeed be paved with asphalt or concrete, and that you guys would submit your plan showing the section is how you intend to build this area out of asphalt or concrete.
Is it being used as storage currently, or?
No, again, it's a long story. We rented about 4 vehicles that parked there, 4 RVs, whatever, parked there. Mr. Roda sent us a letter notifying us of that. Once I became aware, I think he received an email from me that day, we addressed it. One vehicle took much longer than expected, but everything was out there in a few weeks. Maybe not even that long.
Okay, thank you.
We removed vehicles once we realized we were missing vehicles.
Okay, thank you.
Art, do you have any?
I would just say maintaining access to the buildings, it looks like it's offset, it's not gonna,
Fire, yeah,
affect the
it's
fire
not gonna
lanes.
get all the way when you large trucks or fire trucks or everything down.
Mr. Rick, do you have any comments?
I have nothing further.
So I guess sounds like there's three issues, potential issues. Easement, which we've talked about possibly doing, a subject to some kind of documentation or approval of the city law director. There's the easement, I mean, not the easement, that was the easement, the setback issue, which I think Mr. France is pretty strong on, that it would require a variance. I'm in agreement. And then the third would be the surface, which you don't have to tell us today, but you would have to either get a variance or decide to make it. Was additional landscaping, Mr. France, is that an issue with this?
Yeah, so I would say is just a matter of process. So we have a existing conditional zoning certificate that has an outright self-inflicted prohibition of outdoor storage. We know the applicant wants to revise that, and so you'll have an amended application for a conditional zoning certificate that will include outdoor storage. And so when we evaluate that, we would be taking a look at screening and how that outdoor storage area is viewed from the road. I think that is certainly something that you want to take a look at with the amended application. So from a use perspective, provided these other issues are cured, hard surface, setback, outdoor storage is no problem, but I think it does need to be screened.
So that'd be a separate site, will there be a revised site plan submittal? Is that what you were anticipating?
Well, I think it should be an amended site plan for sure, because again, we didn't contemplate outdoor storage in that area. It was green grass.
Yeah.
Grass. And so we would not have screened that area. Outdoor storage, in every application we do since has come to the commission in about 18 years I've been here, we always would look at screening of outdoor storage. That doesn't mean all outdoor storage areas in the city are screened. There's some legal nonconformities out there that the city may or may not be dealing with in separate administrative, actions. But anything that's come to the commission, we've ensured that those areas are appropriately screened.
I was under the impression that's what we submitted today, was a revised conditional use site plan. That's what, because we had some back and forth with the applications. You had the correct application. So I guess I'm sure if we could work out whatever screening you'd like to see, we'd like to do that tonight versus coming back for the same thing again, because I thought that's what we were applying for.
From my perspective, I have a development plan that now identifies a gravel area, and there's no screening on it. So it's a comment that when we look at outdoor storage, we look at screening, and that's documented on a development plan.
I
So
would have thought that would have been
the type-
addressed in the comments then in screening, because that's what we applied for, I guess is what I thought. We applied for a conditional use permit, so.
If the commission wants to do that this evening, they can certainly do that, or they can make it subject to.
Might I
You know?
suggest the same screening we have along the rest of the property, we use similar type of screening?
Yeah, I don't know what that, for memory's sake, I don't know what that was, but again, that, if the commission's comfortable with it, they can make it subject to.
We're happy to work with
So you don't
you.
have to come back for that piece, and I'd be comfortable with that.
Needs to be shown on a drawing.
Yeah, it needs to be on the
Reviewed
drawing.
and minutes.
And I
And we'll
don't
work
think-
with staff too.
Yeah, and I don't think you're suggesting that you don't want to put it on the
No.
drawing, you just don't want to have to come back
I would
specifically
hate
to
to
that.
have to come back and take your time for another item to discuss the same thing again. So.
Yeah, I have no problem with that, it's up to the commission.
That'd be quite a motion.
Yeah. Looks like you've got some really good
I don't
notes.
think I have half of it either.
All right, is there any more questions or?
Kevin?
Yes.
I can vote for the whole thing except the part that I object to because I read the code differently than Brian does. And so maybe we make that a separate one if you would. And I'd vote yes on everything else, but I'll vote no on, if you want to do that.
I'm trying to think of how.
And even coming back for the landscaping, I'm all for that.
From the record.
I mean, they don't have to come back for that, in my opinion. Or I could, say no, and you'd
Yeah.
have a quorum anyway, so you do it the way you want.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how you would do two separate
You don't really need my vote,
motions.
frankly. You have,
All
five.
right.
That's what the discussion after the vote's for, right?
Oh,
I don't know.
between the motion and
Yeah.
after the second, well, no one's made a motion, so I think we could talk about anything, but. All right, I'll take a stab at this. Make a motion to approve the conditional zoning certificate, subject to, either documentation from the easement holder, that specifically allows, or as suggested by Mr. France's memo, or approval of the city law director. Also, approval from the BZA for the setback from the residential area. And either a variance for the surface or asphalt or concrete surface to be provided. And then lastly, subject to administrative review of the final site plan, including landscaping or screening. Did you get that? All right, that's my motion.
Wow.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, more discussion. Any comments on that, Mr. France? Anything you?
Yeah, I believe, Mr. Chairman, I heard you state in that motion, and I want to come back to this conversation in just a second, but in that motion, you base that decision regarding the setback on the code section 116904F2 and the definition of a street under 113304-422. I think I heard you say that.
Make sure Susan also heard that.
Yeah.
She got all that? Okay.
And then insofar as that complete motion you made, I would ask the commission to not take action on that and either rescind it or table that motion under parliamentary procedures. You could table it to a later time in the same meeting as opposed to continuing. And I think you need to amend the original conditional zoning certificate application at the applicant's request to remove the prohibition of outdoor storage.
So that should go first.
I think you need to do that first, and then you need to take a vote
Okay.
that you just did, which I think is a good motion. You just need to do the other one first.
Okay, then, let's,
The safest thing would be to just rescind it, have your second rescinded. Susan can note it for the record of what the motion is,
Okay.
repeat it back, and take a new motion on the original application at the applicant's verbal request here this evening, that they're requesting to remove that prohibition, which you'll take a motion and approve that, I assume. And then go back to the second motion, which is chronological, should happen after.
all right.
So I rescind my second one.
I rescind the motion. You rescind your second. Do we have to vote on rescinding?
I think you should, to be safe.
All right, then I will rescind my motion. All in favor of that?
Aye.
And rescind the second. Jason?
I think it's baked into
Baked
the
in,
same
okay.
motion,
All right, then.
just to be safe.
The new motion is to, how'd you update or?
I think you're, at the request of the applicant this evening, you are accepting, you're making a motion to approve a revised, to amend your revised approval, or your approval of your original conditional zoning certificate for this applicant to remove the prohibition of outdoor storage.
So moved.
You do that?
Did you catch? How did you do that?
Remove the condition of
The prohibition of outdoor
the
storage.
prohibition.
Yeah, the applicant has stated they're requesting to amend that original application and no longer have a prohibition against outdoor storage.
Oh, I see.
And you're accepting that by motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And the record should just reflect that everyone on the commission, 5-0, approved that.
Okay. And then the second motion, do we need to restate it, or can we refer to?
If the planning commission assistant could read it back for the record, so you know what you're voting on.
I think she was hoping to catch most of it in the recording, but,
Well, maybe you want to restate it.
If you want me to try.
yeah, feel free.
Approve the conditional zoning certificate subject to documentation from the easement holder specifically allows as to suggest or approve the city law director. Allows, okay, so I lost one word there.
Or.
Yeah.
Or
Or
approve,
Or the city
approved
law
by the
director.
city law director. Approval from BZA for setback from residential area. A variance for surface or asphalt or concrete provided, subject to administrative review with site plan including screening. And then also subject to 116904F2 and the definition of streets, including 11690422. Does that sound right?
I think it does,
Okay.
and before you make that motion, I would also encourage you to fully incorporate my report updated with January 27th, 2024 into your motion.
So I will include that. So moved with that addition.
Okay. Got it.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Any more discussion on that? Let's do a roll call for this one.
And if I can,
Oh,
Mr.
yes.
Chairman, just one last thing, to the applicant, you understand what the motion is?
I believe so, yes.
Let's do a roll call, Susan.
Sure. Mr. Westbrooks?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
No.
Mr. Wallenhurst?
Yes.
Ms. Meske?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I think there's direction. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
The next item is the conditional zoning certificate for the 55-year-old and over multifamily residence in a B2 community shopping district on Valley View Road. Is that you? Is that you? Feel free to come on up and come on. Tom.
A couple boards, there's gonna be easels up and
Sure. Sure. And for this one, Ms. Meske,
I need to recuse myself for this one.
okay,
I'm on a team that's submitting an RFP for him.
okay. Well, it's all right, the last, the miscellaneous one that was gonna be on here is not on here. You're welcome to hang out and sit, but
Oh,
you're
I can't
also.
be up here, or?
No, you can, you
Oh.
can hang out, just, yeah, you can't, but
Yeah,
you're
that's
also
what I,
free to take off if you wanted to, but
Oh,
you're
this is
welcome
it?
to. This is it,
For
this is the
tonight?
second one, but you're welcome to,
all right, I'll listen just so I understand.
Mr. Chairman?
yes.
If I may, to our planning commission member, you are recusing yourself because of a financial consideration. You as a landscape architect are going to be or are engaged in employment with this firm?
Possible, I will possibly be a sub-consultant to a civil engineer. We are going through an RFP process right now. I just got called about it this morning.
Okay.
obviously.
You know, I do
Project.
think you should, while recusing yourself, you should equally not participate at the table or sit at the table with the planning commission.
Okay.
Just, and not that you would put the air on the side of caution, it's just cleaner.
Understood.
And I'll say, I've sat through some of these courses before, and they always tell you the same thing. Recusing is not just not voting, it's not participating, not commenting.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, so I agree with Brian.
Is it all right
Just so
if I
you don't think he's being
Yeah,
rude.
yeah, you can.
I would,
Absolutely.
yes,
All
I
right.
would get up and, yeah.
Thank you.
As a member of the
To be
public,
safe.
you can absolutely listen.
I am,
Yes.
Elizabeth. All right, great, thank you.
Welcome.
Same thing.
Well, thank you.
Can we get your name for the record?
Sure, my name is Kevin Brown. I'm a Director of Senior Housing Development with National Church Residences.
All right, why don't you give us an overview and tell us about your proposal?
Thank you, Chairman. I brought some information on my company. Not sure if you're familiar with National Church Residences. I did bring 5 copies, but I guess there's 4 needed right now.
Yeah, I can pass one back to the staff.
And you don't need to look at this all right now, but it does have information on our company, of course. And
If you don't mind, I'll pass that one back if you're.
certainly.
I'll give-
And I may stand for a little bit, if that's okay with you.
You're welcome.
Whatever works
Yep.
best for
All
you.
right. Wasn't sure what to anticipate, it's always hard to tell.
Yep.
So a bit about my company. Originating from a Christian commitment of service, National Church Residences provides an array of healthcare services and a variety of housing options to more than 46,000 seniors across 25 states. So driven by a Christian commitment mission, we provide seniors services wherever they call home. We have more than 360 communities across those 25 states. And we are the nation's largest provider of senior affordable housing and the largest manager of service coordinators. We also provide 17 market rate developments that include assisted living, skilled nursing, independent living. Most all of those are located in central Ohio. Our organization is based out of Columbus, Ohio, and we have more than 110 properties throughout Ohio proper. In northeast Ohio, and there's more information on this in the packets. We have 15 senior living properties in northeast Ohio that total over 1,100 units of housing. So I just want to give you a little bit of background. I mean, we're a larger nonprofit, but been around for over 60 years, based in southern Ohio and really in Columbus proper. Our development team members, we're still putting the team together, it sounds like, as you've kind of learned recently. Our architect is Berardi Partners. They have offices in Cleveland. They're really based out of Columbus, and they have an office in Detroit. We've worked with them a lot over many years. They have a vast experience with senior housing. So we are selecting our civil, and we have not selected a general contractor at this point. Still pretty early on in our process, to be frankly. And what we're proposing this evening is the development of a new senior residential facility, and I'm using that term because I think it's how your code calls it, a senior residential facility. On the east side of State Route 8, access from Valley View Road. The property does not currently have an address, but it is next to the Northwoods Lanes Bowling Center at 10435 Valley View Road. Proposed project is for seniors age 55 and up. Living independently. However, the average age of our seniors in our portfolio is really about 74 years of age, and about 68% are actually female. So our goal is really to create a senior housing facility that welcomes new residences, but also provides different or additional housing options within the surrounding community. So I did want to talk to the site plan a bit, and I wanted to point out to you that probably already noticed north is to the left here, so it's a little, just to make sure you're oriented correctly. What we're proposing is a 54-unit facility on really a triangular shape of land. It's about 4.5 acres, accessed by a driveway that connects out to Valley View Road. Our site currently includes 55 parking spaces. I know this doesn't quite meet the current zoning code. 81 parking spaces are required. We're proposing that because that's typically, from our experience, sufficient number of parking. The 1-to-1 ratio is actually typically more parking than is what we see is needed in our senior facilities. On the site plan, we also have, just kind of pointing out some of this, but a turnaround space next to the entry to provide access for shuttle bus drop-off and pickup, and provide other access to other senior services that may be available in the area. In the site's outdoor amenities, let's see, we're including garden areas. We've got an outdoor patio. I know it's labeled patio, but our community room is back here, so it's right off of the community room. And we include walks that go all the way around the building to help encourage outdoor exercise. Now, the building is in compliance with the setback requirements, and our goal really is to maintain as much of the buffer to the north and really to the west as possible. And hopefully it's for obvious reasons, but trying to buffer the highway and also maintain as much buffer as possible to the residential neighbors to the north. So the building itself, I didn't include a site plan, a floor plan, as it wasn't required. Or actually, I think I did.
I think you did.
There was a ground floor plan.
So we are including a community room with a warming kitchen. We have a fitness room, service coordinator office. On the upper level, we have a multi-purpose room, a laundry, and we have on-site property management. Now, the apartments are one-bedroom units. They're full apartments, full kitchen, full bath, and they have washer and dryer hookups as well. So the building is proposed as a 3-story structure, and we're utilizing materials that help hopefully complement the neighborhood. We have a lot of brick throughout the building and using vinyl siding and trying to introduce a lot of ins and outs to try to break up the facade of the building. Now, the elevations, I mean, this is early on, of course, but so this isn't like a final product. Of course, there's more detailing, but this is really to represent the level of finish that we would be proposing. And as you can see in some of our other example developments that I've included in the packet, you can see the detailing in our other existing buildings. So I did want to spend a few minutes describing the benefit of this development to the community. And I would say that the proposed development meets the local need for independent senior housing. While the overall population of Macedonia is really projected to be consistent or constant for the foreseeable future, your population is aging. Actually, the senior population of 65 and older is predicted to grow over 12% in the next 5 years. And I would state that there's pretty limited supply of senior housing. I found looking around, there's about 5 senior facilities, not exactly in Macedonia, but this property is at the edge of Macedonia by Sagamore Hills, and looking in Northfield Center. Looks like there's 5 senior properties, but only one, I think it's Summit Point, actually provides independent senior living. The rest, I think, only provide assisted living or skilled nursing. Now, the proposed development is really designed also to meet the income needs of varying levels. The units in the building would be restricted to those earning 70% of the area median income. Now, currently, for a 2-person household, that would be $48,650. For a 1-person household, that's $42,460. And I think these incomes actually work pretty well for the area. That $48,650 is actually under the income limits for the housing I'm describing here. So that's the median income for a 75-plus household in the area. I'd also state that the development does not or would not overburden emergency services. I heard this as a concern when I met with the mayor and Bob earlier. I would state that the regular presence of our on-site property management, our maintenance staff, and our service coordinator will help expose or discover the vulnerabilities that seniors have before they become issues or emergency issues. And specifically, our service coordinators work to identify vulnerable residents and increase their access to physician care. And I've included some information on this in the forward. But our company, National Church Residences, utilizes the Home for Life program, which is a tracked and evaluated tool based on Care Guide. This online evidence-based tool actually tracks and meets with seniors annually to evaluate their healthcare and social needs. Through this, we're better able to understand the health conditions of our resident population and help meet their unmet needs on an individual basis and also on a holistic basis for the building. So additionally, our on-site service coordinators will also interact with our residents while providing social, fitness, educational opportunities and help evaluate their needs ongoing. Now, when seniors typically move into a facility, they tend to stay. So we know that our seniors would age in place and their needs change over time. So we try to evaluate those needs ongoing to make sure we're providing appropriate services for them. So really, this work of the senior service coordinator will help alleviate or help intercept some of the issues our residents may have before they become emergency situations. And that's really our goal, frankly, is to help our seniors live better, higher quality lives. Now, in the approvals, I know this was probably thoroughly discussed previously. We are located in a B2 district, which is a community shopping district. Senior citizen residential facilities are conditionally permitted uses within a B2 district. Now, proposed senior facilities must meet the requirements set forth in section 1167.08 of the Macedonia zoning code. And I did review the planning memo and certainly understand that our submission did not meet all the requirements, the detailed requirements for submission to be fully evaluated. So we're working with our design team, and why we're reaching out to other consultants is to come back with a more complete proposal for your evaluation and consideration at an upcoming meeting. I would state there were a couple of conditions that I would like to be reconsidered or to discuss a bit. Those include conditions 6A and 6B. Now 6A specifically talks about the easement access, and I certainly understand the need for the Planning Commission to want to review the access from Valley View Road to ensure that we have the proper right and authority to access that site. What I think should be reevaluated is reviewing the condition of the drive as a condition for reviewing the conditional use. I would state that the condition of the driveway is something we would certainly address, and I would propose it to be evaluated and addressed during our construction documents and through the submission of the building permit. Really kind of a private property matter, if you will. But reviewing the easements, documenting that we do have the right of access, certainly I would agree that should be evaluated by the Planning Commission. The other comment, 6B, is to provide a traffic impact analysis. And I bring this up because we got some feedback sort of from a consultant to give us a little bit of information. And what we discovered, and it's not really a surprise to me doing this for a long time, is that the trip generation during the peak hours, 14 vehicles, 8 entering, 6 exiting. That's the peak hour of traffic, which these analyses really look at. And it seems to track. As we know, seniors typically, when they retire, try to avoid heavy traffic situations and would leave or enter the facility outside sort of the peak hours whenever they could. And I got to state, by doing a number of these studies in the past, that's what's typically proven out time and time again. So I would request a changing of the wording to require a trip generation letter in lieu of the traffic impact analysis. A full traffic impact analysis requires about 3 to 5 months to complete, a very thorough document, and one that I don't think is really necessary for a negligible impact to the traffic here. So the city approvals, yeah, we want to come back. My goal is to try to get something together and come back to you for the April 22nd meeting. It's going to require quite a bit of action with our consultants to accomplish that. Hoping to take your feedback from tonight and incorporate that into our resubmission as well. And if we are fortunate to secure the entitlements necessary for the development, we would be in a position to commence construction in the spring of 2025. Construction timelines take a lot longer than they used to, so we're looking at about 16 months to construct this facility, believe it or not. So we wouldn't actually be occupying this facility until probably late summer of 2026 if we are able to move forward on the development. So I appreciate your attention and the opportunity to present before you and can answer any questions to the best of my ability.
All right, thank you. Unless you guys have some initial thoughts, just
I
jump
have
in.
a question, but I'll wait on Brian.
Okay.
I think it'd be better. Go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Report dated January 28, 2024. The applicant did a nice job walking through the sort of the overall intent of the project, high level. So I did go through and identify, 6 with some additional items enumerated under item number 6 that are needed to fully evaluate the application. Sounds like you're already working on that, so some of these things I don't really need to spend time on, right? The scale of the plan needs to be something to an engineer scale that's easily used to evaluate all of these adjacency issues that are raised in your report, both my report and probably the engineer's report as well. So that's easy to do. You have the, obviously, other than the conceptual drainage basin design that I identified in item number 3, you have some work cut out for the utilities and more detailed information about that. Site grading, same thing. Need more information about that. The applicant identified, but for the record, 113704A2, A12, the code requires the off-street parking information, as the applicant stated. 37 spaces are provided. The code requires 81 based on 1.5 parking spaces for every dwelling unit. So that's not something the planning commission can vary, so that would need to be a request to the Board of Zoning Appeals if the intent is to not comply with that standard. Regarding, there was some time spent on item number 6, and there were a few items under that. The easement language about the 24-foot wide access way. I do think that that's really important to know, that ownership issue, what's allowed, what's not allowed, all of that is important. And I do think that details of what that, how that private driveway is constructed and if it can support the additional loads, I do think that is critical in evaluating the conditional zoning certificate application and should be included with this request at this time. I do think that the full traffic impact analysis is needed. I'll defer to the city engineer on that issue, but I think there's a number of issues besides trip generation that needs to be evaluated with the proposed development. I think while not recorded in the applicant's comments, I do think there may have been some concern about the architectural sight line analysis. And essentially what I think is needed is taking a look at, from the adjacent residential development to the north, looking back south in this instance at this building, what will the existing residential structures see with this project? And so some kind of a sightline analysis standing from there and looking at what that view will be, and then how landscaping may or may not impact or incorporate to off some of that potential, let's call it, detriment to that adjacent residential neighborhood. We already talked about the landscape plan by a landscape architect, and then we already talked about the scale. I do also think, based on the applicant's presentation tonight, and while I appreciate you definitely know your market, your industry, it would seem appropriate that the Planning Commission has some level of a housing study that addresses, at a minimum, the number of senior housing units in the study area. Obviously, the study area in the applicant's information is not just City of Macedonia, it's beyond. So how many senior housing units are in the study area? What percentage of those are occupied versus unoccupied? What percentage remain on the market for how long? And that will really address the demand issue a little more than sort of the generalized background that's been provided tonight. That said, I can answer any questions you may have.
Go ahead. Yeah, a couple of, I couldn't follow, is this a rent to own? Do people rent this or own it?
No, this is strictly rental.
Rental. Yeah, it looks like 3 stories there. They have elevators in there, and
Oh, yeah.
can you rent an upper room or you rent the whole?
Would it be an apartment, not a room?
Apartment. So it'd be three floors of tenants.
That's correct.
Roughly, what's the rental? Or do you know? It goes all over the place.
It's from
Lower ones are.
the range of rent?
Yeah, the range.
488 to 1140 is the current rent on Now, that's
depending on the
adjusted-
size of the unit?
No, the units would all be the same size,
Oh, they are.
yeah. So that'd be adjusted annually.
Why would it be 1140 for the lower ones would be a little more?
No, because it's an income-based approach,
Oh, income, that's interesting.
yeah.
You look at the income of the prospective tenants and see,
So, yes, because of the financing that we're utilizing, some of the units would be rented at a lower rate.
oh,
But the bulk of them would be rented at up to 60 to 70% of the area median income.
yeah.
The difference would be subsidized?
No, there's no subsidy.
Are there, it's a pretty long building, are there a bunch of elevators or one or two or three?
Oh, no, I mean, for 54 units over 3 stories, typically one elevator is sufficient.
Well,
If you
it
get
would
up
at
to-
one end or the other or in the middle or something?
It wouldn't be quite in the end, but it would be, I don't know, 30 to 40% from one end or the other.
I see, that's interesting. Huh, based on income, that's very interesting. Let me see if I have any others. And how many tenants were you expecting in the one you're proposing here for?
So it's 54 apartments. Our portfolio, we typically have about, it's between 9 and 10% of the apartments that are occupied with two people.
Okay,
Because it's, as I mentioned, the average age is really about 74.
sure.
So, yeah, we have a lot of single people. As I mentioned, about 68% of our apartments are occupied by females, or women. So,
Yeah,
yeah, it's a lot of
right.
older women.
Well, that's all the questions I have, Kevin.
Okay, okay. So we can come back up. Mr. July, did you have?
Yeah, a few things to add. I generally agree with everything in Brian's memo. I'd like to touch on 6A and 6B a little bit. I think we should do that here. And I have one other item I'd like to throw out there as well. You bring up really good points in 6A about the driveway. Probably does need to be paved. Maybe that should be a condition of any approval that might be gained here tonight. And my other question would be, who's going to maintain the common driveway in the future? I think that would be part of reviewing, us seeing whatever easement document might be in place.
Or a declaration.
What's that?
Or a declaration.
Something, yeah, as a city, I think we want to avoid a situation where we wind up with a shared driveway that nobody really is maintaining.
I agree.
I've seen that problem before.
Because there is a period of time when the bowling alley shuts down for months. I forget.
Summertime,
Is it
usually.
summertime? Okay, I wasn't sure if it
Yeah.
was summer or winter, but yeah, you hate to
Yeah.
have them not care because they got nothing going on and then people
And
can't
the
get.
condition is really poor.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, I recall it being
Conditions.
not good, yes.
It's rumbling and there's holes and,
Yeah, it's not great. No.
yeah.
So that's my thoughts on 6A. 6B is traffic impact analysis. I think that as a city, we do need some sort of traffic impact analysis, just so we can all see and know exactly what's going on, and we can have it for the record. We don't want to, and I know there's not a lot of traffic, I get it, we're not building Walmart here, but we don't want to wind up with a problem later because we didn't go through all the steps. Chairman, I don't know what your thoughts are. To some level of analysis.
I agree, something more than the traffic trip generation letter. That isn't gonna tell us a whole lot of anything, but I think looking at that corridor through there, looking at the Route 8 intersection and the driveway itself, because there are backups and queues, and will people be able to get in and out? Even the 14 that are trying to get in, is there gonna be an issue? Traffic backing up to Route 8 because there's a long queue and it's a long cycle that I still think is not working quite right. Just let the
Oh, I
city engineer know.
passed that along, but that's a separate
Separate issue.
conversation. Yes.
Can I address that a little bit?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. I mean, the site is zone B2, and I would state that what I'm proposing is less of a traffic impact than what otherwise would be permitted there through business development. It's a 4.5 acre site, which is not an insignificant site. I mean, you'd be able to build a fairly significant business under your current code. And the traffic impacts could be far, far greater than what I'm proposing here today. And I don't know if you'd have the ability to require a traffic impact study for that proposed development.
Yes, they
We
could.
We would, yeah.
Yeah.
They could.
Even if it's, yeah, if you're specifically allowed, it could be required.
You said you had other reports. I don't know, would those be like
Sure,
anything like
yeah. I mean, I've
that
done
be
this-
acceptable?
But they wouldn't be for the site, but it would just accept, or it would really analyze the impact of traffic on a senior facility. And when I mentioned the 14, that's like 8 out, 6 in. That's not 14 each direction, that's 14 people coming and going.
I'm concerned about the queues and backups between the intersections, between that and the Route 8 Valley View intersection. Trip generation letter is not gonna tell you if you can do that, and the study shouldn't take 3 to 5 months. I mean, maybe you need to find somebody who can, maybe it's just they're backed up on work, whoever you've talked to, but it shouldn't take that long to do that kind of study. They should be able to get it pretty quick. I think the city engineers want to see that. I think we should see that.
And we provide the requirements for the traffic impact analysis. I mean,
Yeah,
different
sure.
jurisdictions have different requirements as well.
Yeah, so I think basically what we're looking for is some level of traffic impact analysis that can, in writing, tell us and show us that this development won't exacerbate any existing problems or won't cause any new problems. That's really what we're looking for. Would you agree,
But-
Chairman? And I defer to the chairman because he's actually a professional traffic operations engineer by day. You may not know that, but.
Yeah, that's what he does. But I'm sure you guys, you guys can give, okay, we want you to look at morning and evening, simple.
Yeah.
Looking cues.
Rush.
This intersection, this intersection, the driveway and 8. That's what my recommendation, but right past your place and see.
Okay.
Kevin, could he compare similar facilities they have, how that, is
I
that how
mean,
they, is that how you
the
do it?
numbers are generated based on similar facilities.
Yeah.
It's, there's national
Yeah.
data that says.
You
it's
have them
not
all
a
over the
lot.
place.
But I think dropping it into the specific
Yeah.
situation to make sure that,
That makes sense.
is would be the purpose of it.
I've
Doesn't have
observed
to be
with that
super-
intersection there, because it's short, a lot of the traffic, at least coming out of the bowling, turns right, heads towards Route 8, starts to back up into that private drive that's crumbling, and it can get really congested when certain things let out at the same time there. I know that you're proposing just a handful of cars that may or may not impact that, but I think that the city has to cover their butt and protect it, and make sure we've looked at all that stuff.
Yeah, the seniors
That's
will
correct,
learn when
Jason.
not to drive.
When you see all
Yes.
the school buses over at the.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
pulling out- Yes.
Mr. Gelati mentioned something that has me a little concerned, and I guess I had not thought of that this, obviously, two great minds are thinking differently here. I assumed, and you know where that gets me, that this shared access way is going to be a shared private road, because that's what the city allows. We allow public roads and private roads. To the best of my knowledge, we don't allow shared driveways. So it would need to be a private road built to the city standard. And whether it's, servicing two private units, that's a separate issue. You would have the documentation or requesting anyhow, but it's a private street, not a shared driveway, just to be clear.
We don't allow shared driveways.
Not to the best of my knowledge.
I
We
don't
allow
think-
private streets.
Yeah, I don't recall, now that we talk about it, I don't recall us ever approving one here in the past. I'm sure
Is there
there's
anything
some
that
legal
prohibits it?
non-conformings out there.
Because I'm thinking of, just access management reasons, you almost want to encourage some shared use driveways. Combining these two, they can get an agreement to allow a driveway to be shared. Yeah, I mean, honestly,
for
the
curb
point
already
right now,
shared.
It's already
being shared by the dentist office.
Oh.
They don't have a private drive out to.
So now we actually have 3 properties sharing one.
So you have a
Might be even
non-conforming
more
situation.
reason to
Yeah, and I
get it up to speed.
I think the issue, I want to spend less time worrying about the word shared driveway and more so private road. And because it's built to a different standard.
Yeah.
Whether it's a shared private road, driveway, whatever you want to call it, it's built to a standard, which is a city standard, and then it's privately maintained. My point is, it's a private road built to the city standard. It's not some driveway that, you know, Bob and Pat put together and you're gonna have people accessing off it. That's different than a private road.
Brian, well, how about that Kohl's and Popeyes? Don't we have another one appearing, they're gonna use some driveway off the main road there, going up to this new development?
Yeah, they have an access way through.
Is that gonna be a shared driveway or a private road or what?
Their access is all off of Macedonia Commons public road.
Yeah, that parcel would have frontage on Macedonia Commons Boulevard.
Yeah,
So-
they would, but their driveway, several people are gonna use it, right? Different tenants?
And it was built to a public standard.
Oh, it is? Oh, I didn't know that driveway, okay.
So in this case, if they would come in here, whatever this ends up being, let's say it's a private road, built to a certain standard, presumably a higher standard, that would, let's just say that has to be upgraded. Is that now an assessment on the two existing businesses there, or are they responsible for doing all that? Is that something
that's-
So
that's
it's up to
all-
those three property owners to figure out, right?
Devil's in that detail,
Yeah.
and that's the point. We don't know the answer to that.
So you're not necessarily saying it's gotta be a public roadway standard, it's a standard that the city's got, that
So,
mayor.
yeah, right, Mayor Matt, so I apologize, I didn't mean to cut you off. So Denali Court, or whatever it's called, was a good example. It's a private street, but built on the city
It's
standards.
built to the exact same standards as the road that Jason lives on, the road you live on, Scott. The
So we
exact
have-
same curb and asphalt and everything.
We highly encourage you to make it private, so we don't have to maintain it as a city, but it's built to a different standard to ensure the long-term viability of it for all the occupants using it. Obviously, right now, it's not.
And it could be dedicated then?
If you built it to the city standard, you could request dedication.
Marketing.
What's it called? Prince Road or something.
Might be that.
Okay, yeah, and before we get through, yeah, fire, you guys had some comments.
Yeah, and I know this is early on, but looks like an R2 designation, it would be, so it have to be sprinklered alarm. The city does have an additional fire line for the water line, it's 8-inch, where the state code is 6. So it would require an 8-inch line with hydrants spacing of 300 feet. So, and I'm not sure where you're gonna pick that up. Valley View, it has a 12-inch main, and it goes 12 to 8 to 12, and then, I don't know if you're gonna try to come off where the residential is on the other side, and those are mostly 8-inch mains.
I assume it would be coming off of Valley View.
Yeah, I would too. That would
I'm
make.
assuming there's utilities that come down that driveway, and we just don't know the size of the main.
And then the access road that is here lists at 24 feet, and with the size of the building, the height of the building, the recommendation is an aerial access road, which is 26 feet in width. And then the other part of that is near the building is not less than 15 feet or greater than 30 feet from the building, having access. And so you do have parking across the front of the building. I don't know what the depth of that parking will be.
Oh. I'm sorry. So you're saying the parking,
Yeah, so access to one side, so that front side would be like the aerial access,
Mhm.
yep. And so not closer than 15 or greater than 30.
okay. We'll have to go and evaluate that. Of course, I mean, we have bed-in parking, so it's, I think the spaces are 10 by 20 in Macedonia.
20, so then you've got a sidewalk that's 5
Yeah,
foot,
it's
so you're
it's 6, I think you've,
probably close.
you talked about a 6-foot wide sidewalk, so 20-foot,
Yeah,
there's
landscaping
26, and then a
strip.
little bit of landscaping. So,
So that would be the access that would be required.
Yes,
here.
across the
Of course,
front.
We had the turnaround.
and then the other is the cul-de-sac considered the turnaround, and there's also requirements for that.
We'd have to look at this. I'm assuming we would probably, we would make this the fire truck turnaround here.
Okay. Right, and that's just the radius as far as the, 100-foot aerial getting around there.
If I can,
Yeah, good.
if I can just add on to your comment you were kind of saying out loud, it might be behoove you to request that the applicant put this into auto turn and to see the turning movements, to make sure that radius can support the ladder truck. Certainly wouldn't want to build it and it can't get through there.
Have to back out of there.
And your civil can do that.
Yeah, that's pretty common.
And then the fire chief also mentioned just access to the rear with a 3-story building, fire in the back without drive-around access. I mean, it's carrying a 35-foot ladder around the back to rescue somebody from the 3rd floor, and he had some concerns about that. The code doesn't require it because of the size, the number of residential units, and the size of the building, the square footage, but, that's always a concern.
Just to kind of pick at your one comment, is it the expectation that there would be a requirement that there would be a driveway on the east side of the building?
I mean, the fire chief would prefer that, but that's not a requirement of the code.
Okay.
Could that path help if it was placed appropriately? Not for driving, but for ladders or something?
Yeah, I mean, it's grass now, and it's just a sidewalk, but yeah, it'd be difficult. I mean,
Would be designed to support an 80,000-pound piece.
No, but
Yeah,
I'm saying
right.
that if, you're not pulling a vehicle back there, you're carrying ladders, right?
Right, exactly.
So would the ladders be better in the grass or on an asphalt walkway or concrete walkway? I don't
Probably be
know.
safer in the grass, actually, rather than
Okay.
slide on a concrete or,
Maybe thinking about that,
blacktop.
where they place the path.
and I think, what was the other? Yeah, so it's just the turning radius and the width of the road. I mean, like I said, you're proposing 24, and I think the city code for a cul-de-sac street requires a 27-foot pavement, including curb and gutter. So I don't know, that may have to be revisited also. And I can provide you this information.
I received
Susan?
staff sent me a letter earlier today.
Okay, and that's yeah, she wanted this comments by the 2nd, so I was a little late, that's on me.
Hey, Chairman?
Yes.
I never did get to my third
Oh.
point. That's okay.
Sorry.
And as I look at this drawing, and I understand this is not the detailed engineering review, so I don't want to get into that, but currently this development site consists of 2 parcels. We'll call them the west parcel and the east parcel, 2 separate parcel numbers. The west parcel has a permanent parcel number beginning with 81, it appears. That's not indicative of a Macedonia parcel. Macedonia parcels always start with 33. So I guess I'm not 100% sure. I'll leave it up to you or your civil. Eventually you'll probably want to consolidate these parcels. You'll have to survey the whole thing anyways. It needs to be verified that the west parcel actually is in Macedonia. I don't know, I haven't done the deep dive, but when I see a number that does not start with 33, my first thought is always, it's in a neighboring community.
Does 81 typically indicate anything? Is that
I don't know
was-
what 81 means, to be honest with you, that's a weird number.
Is 81 in the adjoining community?
I guess
Is
we-
it in Northville Village?
Oh, I don't know.
Do they start with 81?
I don't know, that's what I was asking. I wasn't sure
I've
if
not
that
seen
meant-
81 before.
So if it's not, you may want to do some title work to find out.
That's where
My
I'm going,
experience
yeah.
with those numbers is there could have been some tax increment district that was created that the county sets a separate fund up and a separate parcel number, and they're typically in the 80s. So you may want to look into that.
Yeah, we pulled title, we have title work on this going through currently.
Okay.
I don't know why it
Yeah.
would be that then.
Yeah, I was curious if it's some sort of tax district, or maybe it was moved from one community to another at some point in time. It's weird, I don't know. But yeah, I've never seen 81 before,
It seemed very odd to me.
yes.
Yeah.
We're always 33, Northfield I think is 41,
Yeah.
oddly enough, so, I don't know, it's weird.
That could
But I
be-
just want to call it to attention, so,
Maybe just call it to Sumner County and.
yeah, verify in one way or another.
And to your point, that we will be pursuing a consolidation of those parcels.
Then it would be cleaned up at that time, or it would at least be identified at that time, I should say.
If it's a special taxing district, it needs to be known now as opposed to later, so
Yeah.
you got a little homework to do on that issue.
We have people looking at it.
Yeah.
There's a few things on title here. So.
That's all I got, Chairman.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to point that out. I didn't want it to go unnoticed, and then it's probably okay, but I don't want us all to have a problem later.
Thank you, I appreciate it, thank you.
Commission, what, I know, Tony, you had a question, but I think you got, did you have anything else?
Pardon?
Did you have anything else?
No,
you
no,
wanted to
nothing
add?
else, no.
You guys?
Just for the record, that the concern would be potentially, I know you addressed this a bit here, taxing emergency services. You have a program that tries to be preventative and proactive. And it sounds great, I don't know if you have any data on that, if it reduces, I know the fire department seems to spend a significant amount of time going to other similar buildings within our community. And some could argue that they're understaffed already, so that would just be something, it's not, I don't think we can prevent anything like that, but it's just something that the city needs to monitor and be aware of. Do you have any data that talks about these interventional type services and how it may reduce the need to tax the emergency services by, it looks like it's proactive or preventative to a certain degree?
Yeah, so this is a program that's been implemented for more than a decade now across National Church, I think across, and I can't say every affordable property that we have, but most of them. And I've seen some data, I don't have complete data, it's something I probably need to look into more. And most of the data is really geared more towards readmissions to hospitals and readmissions as opposed to reduction of emergency services. Because the intent is really to improve the quality of lives for residents. I mean, that's really our charge, right? And so we've seen, the data I was looking at earlier today showed a 42% reduction in readmissions to hospitals or admissions. Also increased access to primary care physicians and addressing other acute issues. But as far as data that directly addresses or compares, I don't know if we have that compares it to the number of emergency calls to another comparable property, or let's say a before and after. This program's really been implemented since like 2010 or 2012. I don't know if we were looking at data that showed like emergency service calls before that for a property.
Is this something that's elective, or everybody gets it if they're a resident? I mean, maybe they don't choose to participate in it, but is it something like they have to pay additional to get these types of services?
No, there's no additional charge. In fact, the rules that I operate under are always evolving, and now we have to provide on-site service coordination. That's a requirement of the senior housing I'm proposing here. So it's not somebody that's going to be there 40 hours a week, but somebody who's going to be there the appropriate number of hours for 54 apartments. And they're going to be providing different evaluations and utilizing this tool to help evaluate residents. I think probably based upon visual cues, interacting with them. But is someone required to participate? No, we can't force anybody to participate in services, of course. And they would be providing in addition to evaluating health and other acute concerns, and part of their charge is to organize social activities. As we know, socialization is one of the most important determinants of long-term health for anybody. But I would have to check to see if we have any data that really addresses emergency service reduction of calls.
Mr. Chairman, if I can.
Yes.
So as the Commissioner mentioned, I think that's a good point, and it kind of gets to that housing sort of analysis that I mentioned earlier. But it's not uncommon for a community to require a fiscal impact analysis. And I think it seems appropriate in this instance where essentially the applicant will analyze the proposed use, the demand of services for that use compared to the taxable value, if you will, of that use and what the community gets from a tax standpoint to look at the delta between those two. And that will start to flesh out the impact of a land use to a local jurisdiction. So it seems like, Mr. Roberts, that's what you you were kind of going towards, and that is not uncommon for a community to want to see what those fiscal impacts are. That evaluates, cost of services, so police, fire, utilities, public utilities. that is.
And would that take into account the existing senior population and their usage of the services?
And it'd be specific to your proposal, so whatever you're proposing, how that impacts,
But if we're housing folks that would normally be independent in their own homes and calling for those services, I guess it's trying to understand what the difference in evaluation of that would be.
yeah, I think the key is, you're housing them all in one single building, and so at a much higher density, and so that has an impact to services. This particular type of residential use, I think we've kind of discussed here tonight, we've heard that there's some concern of the use of safety services. So maybe the fire department has some data, but that they're often called out more, and I do this in other communities. And so where we have assisted living facilities, they're often a higher generator of demand of safety services to that particular use as opposed to a single family home.
Yeah, and I'm not arguing that point. I'm just comparing it to a senior that may be 80 years old living in a single family home. That kind of population.
But that's not what you're proposing in this instance. You're proposing a single facility to house aged 55 and older to a senior population that will probably require more demand for services than a standard single-family home that has maybe somebody 55 and older living in it.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think I want to have to get into the fine details of how that analysis would be completed. But
Yeah, and there's, I've done fiscal impact analysis for residential commercial developments, but not specifically for a senior housing development. But I'm sure there's folks like me out there, planners, community planners that can provide that service.
I think that would, yeah, definitely beneficial to, you gotta be able to plan for these things as well. I mean, if it's something that's gonna happen, just what do we gotta be ready for?
Well, the community needs to understand the fiscal impacts,
Yeah.
If it's gonna cost the city of Macedonia to have this land use, it's gonna cost them more, that needs to be known up front. And then, who knows, maybe it will require some additional service that's not provided by the fire department now, or some additional staffing resource. I'm just talking out loud, I don't know, but those are the types of things that get evaluated when you look at an impact analysis.
I think the data, you probably have it just from all these different facilities, it's just
Yeah,
a matter of putting it together. Not that that's quick or easy, I appreciate that, but
well,
you might find it's actually a positive impact versus, say, single-family homes with similar age people, residents.
yeah, I think we can certainly work, but I do agree with Mr. France. We're going to have to hire a consultant to put together that kind of a study.
And that's just that's up to the commission, but it feels like there's enough conversation about it tonight that maybe it's something that we should have as part of your application.
And Chairman, I think we could, with the number of places that he mentioned around here, we could reach out to those other fire departments and see what the impact has been to them. It looks like Ravenna has a 51-unit facility, which is similar to what your 54. So, it's a phone call and see what the number of calls and what the impact has been to those departments.
And that's a good fact finding for, the municipality can do, but I think the information needs to be supplied by the applicant,
Right.
confirmed by the city.
Well, it looks like we've got there's still a lot of unknowns. Go ahead.
I did.
Oh, I'm
just
sorry,
have-
you did.
No,
have
it's
something.
okay. I did have a
Go
couple quick comments. So, in regards to the architecture, I noticed that you note that the max roof height is 35 feet. Are you guys proposing that you would be over 35 feet then?
Well, I think it's still something we're evaluating, and my understanding from discussions is the 35 foot is to the midpoint of the roof line. Is that how we're measuring the height of the building?
I don't believe our code reads that way. I thought it was the top of the,
Like the mean height?
I thought there was something in there that I
Maybe
never
it is,
fully
maybe it is.
understood.
what's that?
That I never fully understood.
Well, I know there's one that like gives, there's an additional, or similar to like the hotel where they're given an additional X amount of feet above what they,
I was gonna say American House is clearly higher than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's, the height of the building is the vertical distance to the highest point of the coping of the street wall in the case of a flat roof, or to the mean height between eaves and ridge in the case of a pitched roof, measured from the finished grade.
okay.
And there's no special allowance, if you will, for additional height in this district.
Okay. That's what I kind of thought that might be why I was only showing it at 35 feet, but just want to clarify.
Yeah, we
Um,
can design to
no.
35 feet of that to the mean of the roof.
Okay. The other thing was, I noticed you have kind of notation of the mechanical units kind of in a flat roofed area. You're just going to want to make sure that those are screened to some extent, especially because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, those would actually face Route 8. So just screening would be required on those. And that's all I initially have architecturally wise. I think it looks like a really nice building. Appreciate you guys using brick and, you know, the pitch roof and such, but we can get into, when we get more final elevations, we can get into more details on it.
Yeah, I appreciate the comments. Yeah, I mean, our goal is to provide an attractive building. It's gonna be marketable, of course. So,
Right.
conditions of the driveway we've talked about, yeah. We wanna have a nice driveway as well.
That's all I have.
Okay. Anybody else have anything else?
Just one little question. Is, you said 33, I'm sitting around here fiddling with my computer.
We did too.
You say 33 is not Macedonia?
Yeah, so Dave and I have since looked into that. It turns out, I believe this property actually is in Macedonia. It is a taxing district item. 33 is indicative of property that pays taxes to the City of Macedonia and Nordonia Hills School District. 81 is indicative of a property that pays taxes to City of Macedonia, Nordonia Hills School District, and North Hills Water District, which services Northfield Center and Sagamore.
Huh.
So one of two things happened in the past. Either when they drew the lines for the water district, this is just where they drew it, really weird. Or it is possible that this west half of the property was actually in Northfield Center Township a long time ago.
Well, what I'm saying is, I just looked
I
up
think so.
Northwoods, since that's the only address I have. Northwoods is two parcel numbers, both 33, and their regular code number is NF, which means Northfield to me.
Yeah, everything in original Northfield Township.
But it's still in
Starts with an
Macedonia.
NF.
I was wondering if we're in the wrong district here.
It's still in the city.
Yeah, so 81 is in Macedonia. It's a weird holdover, I'm
I
assuming,
get you.
from
Okay.
the water district
You're
line,
in the right
or there
jurisdiction.
could have been a transfer, a change of court limits.
Didn't want to go through all this and you have to run to Northfield.
No, I don't wanna do it in two jurisdictions.
Yeah, and that was on my mind when I saw 81. Oh, two jurisdictions, but I don't think that's the case.
Some investigation of that taxing jurisdiction is needed for the city to fully evaluate it. I do have some, just back of my mind, concerned about that. So just to understand it fully, I think is important.
Sure, I probably share the same concerns you do.
Well, maybe, yeah.
All right. So I think with the additional information that's needed, I think we probably need to continue this to a future meeting. You had thrown out April. I'm guessing the March might be too quick to get back.
Well, I'm not gonna have updated plans for March. I mean, we understand from the comments, we need to complete a survey. I think a topo boundary survey is probably sufficient to make the submission. Our goal is to get an ALTA completed, because the easements we certainly want to plat out to understand those. And we're doing some research currently. We've had title back for not quite a week now, so we're looking at those items. I would say the studies that you've talked about, we're getting proposals for traffic studies right now. Can't say how long it's going to take. I'm concerned about getting something back that's going to be sufficient to give you the information you're looking for in a quick turnaround. The emergency services, the fiscal impact study, if it's truly starting with looking at calls that we're receiving or that we're getting at other facilities that are nearby, I mean, certainly we can do that legwork internally and try to report back on something to you. And if you're really looking for a professionally completed fiscal impact study, that's going to take some time. And I don't know how long that may take. And for me, we're not the owner of the property currently. As you can imagine, we have a purchase and sale agreement for the property that has certain timeframes of when we need to make decisions by as well. So I'm trying to abide by what's in the contract I have with them currently. The other part is, I'm trying to understand what are, if you will, what is the threshold to receive the conditional use approval as well. I'm trying to understand if I come back and satisfy what you're looking for, is that going to be, I know you can't say this, but trying to get to the point where I have a good understanding of the investment of time and resources that we're making to pursue this.
It's a tough question.
Yeah, I think that's something that the planning commission probably can't really answer until they have some of the information. I think, it's part of that diligence process that you have. I don't know what your timeline is for due diligence, your ability to amend that timeline and all of that. That's a, private contractual arrangement between you and Dalm. Interestingly, they were just in here last month and none of this came up. But that's that's something for you to talk through with them. I think, the things that we talked about tonight, at least from the, my professional opinion to the recommendation of the planning commission, are important and should be documented in some formal reports.
You'd also mentioned a housing study too.
I think that's part and parcel with this fiscal analysis. So, okay, what are the, we know it's not just City of Macedonia, you're going beyond that. There's this geographic area you're pursuing that will service this demand. And so what is that demand? How many units are available in the study area? What percentage of those units are occupied versus unoccupied? How long do they sit on the market? Is there a demand for more 1 unit, 2 units? You know your business a little better than us, but I think it should be more specific to the study area as opposed to just sort of, high level, well, this is kind of what we see at a national level information.
Yeah, I can quote you different numbers. I have access to pretty good data locally. There's services that we subscribe to that provide us with a lot of great information. But we're also completing a market study as we speak. So,
oh, good, and that'd be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah,
so if I was to provide the market study back to you, that would, or show you a copy of that would be sufficient to.
I'm assuming that market study will dive into kind of these questions that I'm asking, like, it's gonna look at this geographic area that you've described, in your background data, and it's gonna look at the units.
It would define the market study based upon the market study professionals' experience. They dialogue with us, but I was looking at data sets specifically for Macedonia and also for Macedonia, Sagamore Hills, Northfield and Northfield Center. Conglomerating them based upon the location of the property within Macedonia.
What data set are you using?
I was using NICMAP. They use Claritas and some other data sources and a lot of private data. They're a national platform for the senior living industry specifically.
Sure, yeah, and I'm not familiar with those, but I use like ESRI business patterns a lot, but.
That's a lot of what our market study and also we typically using that as well.
Yeah, so if you have that data, then you're gonna be able to dive down and give the planning commission more firm information. You can just package it up. If you feel you can do that yourself as opposed to some professional, then do it. You've been doing this a long time. I think to understand the study area, the absorption rate of these units, what's out there, what's sitting idle, all of that, I think is important to understand the need.
And I'll have that data. I'm sorry I'm drawing some sort of nuanced distinctions here, but The market studies I work on typically don't look at like skilled nursing. I mean, they're gonna be looking at independent living specifically.
There's a new facility going up in Sagamore Hills on 82, and I don't know what that all encompasses, but I do know that's something you may want to try to get some, if it's not in your report right now, because it's actually being constructed right now.
They'll capture that.
So,
If it's a
okay.
new, this is what these
It
analysts
is.
do for a living.
Yeah, it's a rather large community that's going there. I don't know what.
If it's okay with the building department, I mean, if you start to draw in some of that information, I'd be glad to take a peek at it before a formal submittal. It's entirely up to you guys, but rather than, I don't want you to make a formal submittal and, kind of, in my opinion, didn't capture what we were talking about. So that's entirely up to you and up to the building department, but I'd be glad to take a peek at it and just, from my perspective, make sure you're going down the path that I am envisioning. It feels like we're gonna get there by what you're saying, but.
There'll be a lot of data in the market study, believe me.
Yeah, good. I like data.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like there's a lot of issues in all the comments from all the reviews that you got. But I think we should make a motion to continue this to a future meeting. I don't know if we can really nail down the date, or should we?
You can continue to the April meeting as the applicant stated, and if they feel as though they're not prepared, they can request it to be out further.
Okay.
Whatever, it just don't continue it to the next month when they know they're
Really
not
not
gonna.
gonna be able to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's do that. Let's continue this to the April meeting. Yeah, if you can't, let's let the city know. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, just for the sake of the record, the applicant, you understand what you're going to be providing, or what the commission is asking for. I don't want you to walk out of the room tonight and not fully understand why it's being continued.
I would say I understand. I may reserve the right to ask questions
Sure.
in the future.
Certainly. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For your presentation.
Appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then the miscellaneous item, which was 7 Brew, has requested to be withdrawn. They're not actually listed on the agenda, so do I really need to do anything with it? Okay. Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye. And back to actual